Hey guys, so today I'm going to go over resolving secondary dominants to a new chord. Sometimes this will refer to a triad, sometimes it refers to another secondary dominant, another seventh, a minor chord. I mean, there's just all sorts of options. So I'm going to go over 4 different problems here. Most of the problems in this homework should solve like number 1. But number 3 is going to be a little different because we're going to resolve to another secondary dominant. Number 7 is going to be a little different because we resolve to a 7th chord instead of a triad. And number 8 is going to be a little different because we know that we're in a minor key, but we don't know whether we're in natural minor or harmonic minor until we start resolving stuff. So let's go ahead and jump into it. The first thing that I usually do is I figure out the lead sheet symbol of the listed chord. If you are not strong on figuring out what type of 7th chord you have, I would strongly advise that you check out my 7th chord video. It will really help you to figure this stuff out. So in this case, it looks like we have a G dominant 7. We know this because we've got a G, B, D, and F, which spells a G dominant 7. And it looks like this one is inverted because that B is on the bottom. There, we got that. Next, we want to figure out the Roman numeral and the figured bass. Just an FYI, every single one of these given chords is a secondary dominant. So you don't need to figure out whether they're secondary dominant or not. I can already tell you they are. So in a secondary dominant chord, we know that there's always going to be a 5 on top. And then it looks like in this case, we are in a first inversion. And we know that because the B, which is the third of this G7 chord, is on the bottom. So we can put our 6-5 in there. And then we want to figure out our tonicized chord. In this case, if you take the root of this chord, which is G, and you count down a perfect fifth, you end up on C. In the key of G minor, a C is a 4. Minor 4, I should say. So now we want to go ahead and start resolving. Well, we know that our second chord will usually resolve to the tonicized chord. I'm sorry, unless otherwise specified. Oh, sorry, I've got the hiccups a little. Unless otherwise specified. So in this case, we know that we are going to resolve to a minor 4. And we literally just figured out that the minor 4 was a C minor. So we can put that lead sheet symbol in there as well. Now we want to find the 7th of our given chord and resolve it downward. So in a G7 chord, we know that the 7th is going to be an F, and it looks like the F is located here in the soprano. So we can take that F and we can resolve it downward to an E flat. Next, we want to find the leading tone of the tonicized chord. So usually the leading tone refers to this key signature, but remember that in a secondary dominant chord, we are temporarily changing key signatures. So now our key signature is going to refer to the tonicized chord, which is a C minor. So the leading tone of a C minor is going to be B, which is located here in the bass. So we can take that bass note and we can resolve that upward to a C. And then you can just go ahead and resolve those remaining notes. In the case of the alto, we can actually leave that as a G because there is a G in a C minor chord. And take that tenor. You could technically resolve it upward to an E flat, but in this case I'm going to resolve it downward to a C because then you'll have 2 roots, 1/3 and 1/5. And then if you haven't already, then you just fill in the leading tone and the Roman numeral and figured bass for the last chord, but we just did that, so we don't have to follow that step. So that's how you resolve number 1 and pretty much all of them except for 3, 7, and 8. So let's go ahead and move on to number 3. So this one we're going to start out the same way we did the other one. You want to figure out the lead sheet symbol of the listed chord. So in this case, it looks like our chord is an E7. And I know this because you have an E, G sharp, a B, and a D, which makes it an E7. And it looks like it's over a D, so we know that that is inverted. So now we can figure out the Roman numeral and figure base of our secondary dominant chord. Once again, the 5 is always going to be on the top, and it looks like in the case of this chord, it's the D is on the bottom, which is the 7th of an E7 chord. So this one is actually going to be a third inversion, which is a 4-2, and for some reason my finale does not recognize 4-2 as a legitimate figured base symbol, so I always have to enter it all awkwardly like that. Don't know why, doesn't really matter. So we've got our 5-4-2, now we need to figure out what the tonicized chord is going to be. So if you take the root of this chord, you can count down a fifth, which will put you on an A, which is a 2 of a G major chord. So now we come to step 3, which in this case we're actually going to skip because it does not resolve to the tonicized chord because it is otherwise specified as a 5-6-5 over 5. And the reason why I've moved this down is because my text gets all skewered whenever I start entering information in. But this is going to be the chord that we're resolving to. So before I even get into resolving the 7th or the leading tone or anything like that, we are going to figure out what this chord is. So if you count up a fifth from a G, you are going to end up with a D. I'm pretty sure that's right. G, A, B, C, D. Yep. Sorry, my brain's not working today. And then if you were to count up another fifth from that D, you would end up on an A. And the reason why you count up a fifth from the G is because there's a 5 here, and then you count up a fifth from that because there's a 5-6-5 here. So we know that our second chord is going to be an A of some sort. We don't know. We actually do know that it's inverted because it's got that 6-5, which means that it is going to be an A7. We know that it's a 7 because that 6-5 refers to a 7th chord over C sharp. And we know that it's over C sharp because C sharp is the third in an A7 chord. So now we know what our second chord is going to be. So the first thing you notice is that you have already been given your bass note based on the figured bass, which is going to be a C sharp. So I'm just going to make things a little bit easier on myself, and we are going to go ahead and put that C sharp in there. And then you can go ahead and move on to the next steps. So we're going to find the 7th of that first chord that we were working on. So in this case, it is going to be the D, which is the bass, and voila, it's already been resolved down. Awesome. So then we want to find the leading tone of the tonicized chord and resolve it upward. So incidentally, and it doesn't always work out this way, but the tonicized chord is an A, so the leading tone of the A is going to be the G sharp, which looks like it's located in the soprano. So we can take that G sharp and we can resolve it upward to an A. Whoops, there we go. And then you just want to go ahead and resolve those, remaining notes. So the, let me switch layers here. So the alto, we can actually leave where it's at because there is an E in the A7 chord. And then the B, you can resolve that either upward to a C or downward to an A. Looks like we've already got an A, we've already got a C, we've got an E. So actually, and I'm sorry, I don't know how I missed this, but there's already a G located within that. Whoops, I'm in the wrong layer again. There's already a G located in an A7 chord, so you can actually leave that G where it's at. So now we've actually got our full answer here, and it's a little skewered, I know. Yours will look way better, but now you've got your resolved chord which you were given, your original chord which is now labeled, and you've got all that in place. So that's how you would do something like number 3, where you resolve from a secondary dominant to another secondary dominant. Now we move on to number 7. This is a, it looks like a triad. Well, actually, we're going to figure out that it's not a triad, it's just missing a note. But we are resolving from a secondary dominant to a 7th chord. So this one, pretty much the same as the other ones. Let's figure out the lead sheet symbol of that listed chord. In this case, it looks like we are going to end up with a G, B, G, F, with a G dominant 7th chord. And it's not inverted because the G is on the bottom. And then we want to figure out our Roman numeral and figured bass. Once again, the secondary dominant always has a 5 on top. It's not inverted, so we're just going to keep this figured bass as a 7 because we know that it's the 7th chord, which we know because, you know, we just figured out that it's a G7. Whoops. Okay. So now we can, I'm sorry, I just felt like I deleted something I wasn't supposed to. Anyway, so now we need to figure out what our tonicized chord is. So we, I'm sorry, so you take the root of this chord, which is a G, and you count down a 5th, which gives you the tonicized chord. I'm sorry, can you tell my brain is starting to shut down a little? So, which is a C in the key of B flat major. A C is a 2. So in this case, we've now got our first steps done. We can skip step number 3 because we are already given the next chord that we are resolving to, which is a 2-7, minor 7, I should say. So first of all, given that we are given a 2 minor 7, we know that in the key of B flat, a 2 minor 7 is going to be a C minor. So we can go ahead and put that in there, and guessing by the figured bass, it looks like it is going to be in root position. So if you want to make it a little easier on yourself, you can go ahead and put that bass note in the C because it's not inverted to anything. And then we just do the same thing we've been doing over and over again. Take the 7th of that chord and you can resolve it down. So the 7th of a G7 chord is obviously, I'm sorry, is obviously going to be an E. It actually looks like in this case we don't have the 7th anywhere. That's our missing note. So, and I'm sorry, it's not an E, it's an F. I'm going backward. Okay, I'm sorry. So it is located in the soprano. So we're going to switch layers. Take that F, we can resolve that 7th downward to an E, which is in a C minor chord. And then you want to find the leading tone of the tonicized chord. So the tonicized chord is going to be a C minor. And you know what? Before I even get to that part, I just realized I forgot to put my 7 here. Because don't forget, it is a 2-7, not just a 2. So you've got your C minor 7 chord, and I'm sorry, so your key signature of the tonicized chord, which is located here at the bottom, which is a C minor, is the B. And it looks like that's located in the alto voice. So you can take that B and you can resolve it to a, and let's see here, C, E, G, B. You can actually leave that where it's at because resolve is resolving to a C minor 7 chord, which is a C, E flat, G, and B flat. And in fact, we are going to make that flat again to make sure that it fits the key signature. Okay. So now we have resolved the 7th and the leading tone, and we can just resolve the remaining notes. Looks like all we've got left is the G and we can incidentally leave that exactly where it is because there is a G and a C minor 7. So now we've got a C, E flat, G, and B flat, which, you guessed it, makes a C minor 7th chord. So that's how you do number 7. And finally, number 8, which is super fun. We are going to do pretty much the same thing that we did for all of these other ones. Let's figure out the name of the chord. So it looks like we have got a G minor chord here because you have a a G major chord because you have a G, a B natural, and another G. So we know that it's not a 7th chord because we don't have a 7th. So that is a G chord. It's not inverted because the G is on the bottom. The reason why we know that this one is a secondary dominant is because in the key of F minor, the G, which is the 2, would normally not be major. It would normally be, half diminished, one of the two. I'm sorry, I can't think today. You know what I'm saying. It would normally not be major. So in this case, we know that it's a secondary dominant because it is a major, and you would obviously usually look for a dominant 7th. So then we want to figure out the Roman numeral and the figured bass of the secondary dominant. Once again, secondary dominant always starts with a 5. This is not inverted, so we actually don't need to add any figured bass because this is just a regular triad. And then you count down 5 from G, which becomes a C. I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here, which is a 5th in a F minor chord. So we've got a 5/5. I know that looks a little weird, but I promise you it's right. So then we want to note that our next chord is going to be the tonicized chord because the secondary dominant resolves to a tonicized chord. So we're resolving from a 5 to a 5. Okay, so we want to find the 7th of the chord. In this case, we don't have a 7th because it's a G major triad. So we can skip to the next step, which is the leading tone of the tonicized chord resolves up. So the tonicized chord is a C, which means that the leading tone of a C is going to be that B natural. So we're going to take that B natural, we can resolve it upward to a C. And I'm going to go ahead and put my C here because we know that it's resolving upward to a C. Now the reason why I put this as a major C and not a minor C, despite the fact that we've got an E flat here, is because in the key of F minor, harmonic minor, your 7th would be raised by a half step, so your E flat becomes an E natural, which makes the chord C, E natural, G, which is a 5 major chord. So now we have gotten our tenor note resolved. We can resolve the other two. Well, they're both G's, and G's are incidentally already included in a C major chord. So you can leave that G where it's at on the top, and you can put the G at the bottom as well. I mean, really, if you really wanted to, you could put the G down to an E flat. I'm just going to leave it as a G because, number one, we kind of want to avoid having inverted chords, if at all possible. And then this will keep this a 5 to a 5 instead of a 5 to a 5, 6, 4. But I mean, really, you could do it either way and it would be right. So then at this point, you would fill in the leading tone for the last chord and the Roman numeral and figured bass, but we've already done that. So I hope that helps. I'm sorry my brain started malfunctioning a little bit there toward the end, but I hope that this helps. And if y'all have any questions, give me a call.